All right, we're going to go ahead and get started with Coach Johnson. Our first question will be Michael Lev, Arizona Daily Star.
Hey there, Jay. I know that Mississippi Valley State is a kind of a struggling rebuilding program, but how does anyone beat an opponent on this level 66-0 over 3 games?
Yeah, it means you have a good team. I'll start with the zeros. They have a good pitching staff. They're around the plate. They throw strikes with all their pitches. And on the offense side, they have a very veteran team that's been through it a few times and, ready to take quality at bats. It appeared early in the season. So we're excited about the challenge that we have with this good team coming in.
With that series being an exception, there were a lot of upsets across the nation, it seemed like. Do you have any theories as to why that might have been the case?
I think if there's a year going into a college baseball season where a lot of teams don't really know what they have, I think you can't make assumptions based on the name of a school, what rankings, preseason prognostications. I might have the wrong word there. If I do, I apologize. But, there's just so little data to go off of what happened in 2020. And then you compound that with the draft, where a lot of schools didn't lose a lot of players. That could be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on where they were maybe in their program. And then you look at the off season, there's been a lot of changes. I think, we immediately saw it in the first weekend with the pitching staff we faced. A lot of pitchers have added a lot of velocity and those kinds of things. So I think there's just a lot of unknowns. And so, we're not getting caught up in really any of that stuff and just focusing on what we control, which is our preparation and our play.
You describe your schedule as hellacious. I think that was the word that you used. Is that a good thing in the big picture?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there's no layup wins on the schedule relative to the competition. You look at last weekend and get a very good pitching staff, a very old, veteran team offensively. And, we left them a crack on Saturday night by making a mistake and then compounded it with not really throwing strikes, let them back in the game and they won. And then they played good and won on Sunday. So, I think that was a perfect example of that. And our goal is to be better this week than we were last week. It was to be better Monday than we were on the weekend. And we're going to stick to that because I like our team. I like the pieces of our team. I'm excited about where we're headed and, looking forward to this next challenge.
Next question, Matt Moreno.
Hey, Coach. As you look at kind of last week and take kind of evaluation of what you saw, is there anything that jumps out to you that, says this needs to be changed immediately, or this is one of the things that we need to really make an adjustment to going into the second weekend?
Yeah, I think helping players get settled, that was one of the main reasons that I moved into the dugout on Monday, was to be able to communicate with players literally on every pitch of the entire game and multiple players at one time to help set them up to be successful. Again, you're looking at, we did start a couple freshmen, and you look at Mac Bingham. I mean, he played for us last year, but only got 15 games under his belt. Kobe Cotto, Tyler Casagrande, they were their first time starting. And then just the magnitude of getting back to playing baseball in real games. A lot of them haven't done that for a long time. And so we work on things, we prepare, in my opinion, at a high level, but I wanted to take that a step further in being able to communicate with the players during the game at a high level. And so we'll continue to operate that way, but just kind of getting them settled in. I think the other part of it was how we want to line up the pitching a little bit better. And again, it was in a pretty good spot, until the 8th inning of Saturday night's game, how we had it set up. But that's going to happen. And I think we can only take that as a learning experience, but we want to get ourselves in position where every pitcher we're bringing in, it's the right situation for them to be put into. And so I think we'll have that in a lot better spot this weekend.
Now that you've had a chance to see some of those pitchers, does the message change to them at all now that you've seen them and going into, a team that's capable of putting up some big offensive numbers?
Yeah, I think, relative to moving forward to this week, these guys, they just do a lot of things well. They have very good speed with the first 2 hitters in their order and very good team speed throughout. They have some physical guys in the middle that can hurt you. So they're very complete. They have a really good plan of attack in terms of what they do. So, I mean, that's all stuff we don't control. We can control, is strike one, two of the first three, pitching down in the zone, changing eye levels, and all those things that Coach Yeski does really well, and just staying focused on what we want them to do and keep it about our plan. We'll have to, manage the running game really well this weekend from the mound. We'll have to handle the baseball in the infield really well this weekend and make them earn all of their opportunities.
Next question, Brian Savick.
Yeah, how's it going, Coach? So what's really the message to the team going into this series against Southeastern Louisiana after splitting the opening series 2-2 against Ball State?
Yeah, the message is get better. I mean, we had kind of a unique week where we finished on Monday, we start on Thursday. So what we did yesterday is we split the off day through the team. We had some guys that needed to pitch and needed to get at bats. So we basically worked with some of those guys and had a scrimmage with half the team yesterday. Then the other half, the guys that played the majority of the time, they'll come in today and work on some specific things that we want to improve on from last weekend and put those guys in a better position to be successful this weekend. So it's really staying the course. I think, as Michael mentioned, there's a lot of upsets. UCLA, I think, lost 2 out of 3 all over the place. I mean, Texas scored 1 run in 3 games. So, I don't make too much of either of the opponents other than I know their quality. And we're really excited to just get back at it and compete tomorrow with Chase on the mound and getting a good flow of what we're trying to do.
Next question, back to Michael Lev.
I believe this is the 3rd time that you've had a true freshman catcher who's handling the majority of the duties back there. Cesar was the first, right? And then Austin and now Daniel. How hard is it for someone to step in that particular position and just do a really good job at the collegiate level?
Well, I think what's great is all 3 of those guys are really good players. And I was very pleased with how Daniel caught this weekend. I thought this was his best weekend of handling the pitching staff, of blocking, of receiving, of any weekend that he's been here. And I think that was great to see. I think, again, he'll get better as the season goes along. I think he'll take better at bats as the season goes along. And was really pleased with how well that he caught. I think he does a good job of building rapport with the pitchers. I think they would tell you that. And it doesn't really feel like this is his first go around. Has a really good baseball mind. And I think he'll be very successful moving forward, handling our pitching staff. And, there'll be bumps along the way, but I mean, we had 4-year players have some bumps this weekend. So it's baseball. It's not easy. I think he'll respond well to the things he needs to do better. And I think our pitchers trust throwing to him a lot.
Sure. You obviously want every player to be a good all-around player, but with catching specifically, do you tell them, hey, take care of the defense first and foremost, and if you do that, we'll be good. The offense will come kind of as we go.
Well, it is a more important part of the game. I don't know that we reference or frame it that way because in Daniel's case, I do think he's going to be a good offensive player. Austin was one of the best offensive players in the country. Cesar was so good at handling the staff and just doing what we needed him to do on offense. And by the time he left as a junior, he was a really good hitter as well. So, we want him to be complete, and that's what they came here for. And that's a process of development. And some of it is coaching. Some of it is playing time. Some of it's experience, be it during the season in the summer. And I expect him to stay on the same track that those other guys have. And he certainly has the talent to do that.
Sure. And one more question about him. He had a relationship with Coach Yeski, if I'm not mistaken, prior commitment. And did you also have his brother?
Yeah.
One of his brothers on your team in Nevada. Yeah. So
yes.
He just talk through his recruitment, how it all kind of came together.
Yeah. Referencing the previous relationships, I think Andrew was at Oregon State the first or second year, maybe, that Nate went up there. And so simultaneously, their first 2 years were together. And then, being from Northern California, I certainly knew their name because Andrew was a good player. I briefly recruited him at San Diego. We went with another catcher. He went to Oregon State. And then I had Matt at Nevada. Matt was already at Nevada when I got the job at Nevada, and my 2 years there, he was a junior and senior. Great kid, great family. And so I think there's just a lot of familiarity with both of us. And, when Oregon State, made a coaching change, or Coach Casey decided to retire, that changed the dynamic for their family. And, we probably had a little bit of head start because of a positive relationship, with, 2 coaching staff members, and really excited to have him for sure.
Next question, Brian Peterson.
Coach, I know that the pitching side is more with Nate and all that, but now that you have these 4-game series early in the season, and this was the first one you did, how did that change how you managed the bullpen and the usage? I saw that there were 5 guys that pitched in 2 games, and 2 or 3 of them did back-to-back games. Knowing that you have 4 straight days, how does that affect your usage, especially of your high leverage guys?
Well, there's a couple of them that we feel strongly physically and arm health wise, they can throw multiple times during the weekend. And they're older pitchers that are seasoned, that have been in tough spots, that are in physically good condition, Vince Vanelli, Preston Price, and Ian Churchill. So you'll see those guys in multiple games. We used Randy Abshar twice. The second day, we put him in a much better position for him to be successful than the bases loaded and nobody out for his first appearance for the year. That wasn't a good setup for Randy. So, but he's a specialist, in terms of what he brings to the table. So I would put him into that category of a guy that you can use twice in a weekend as well. There's other guys, Dawson Nets could fit into that category, but he could also start. He could also get some length out of him, which is what we were trying to do on Saturday night, is, Chandler to Dawson, and then we made the error. He gave up a hit and then hit the left-hander in the foot. And so it put us in a tough spot with 3 lefties coming up in the next 4. So we decided to go to Randy at that time. So it presents some challenges because we don't want to overtax anybody early in the year. Garrett, coming back off of some soreness complicated that a little bit as well, because, he wasn't ready to go 5 or 6 innings and really shrink that down. So the volume of guys that we have to use probably last weekend, or had to use last weekend, have to use this weekend, is maybe a little more than you'll see once we get into Pac-12 in a 3-game type series, which I think once we get to that point, we'll be in good shape. But at the same time, it's a great opportunity to see what we have. It's a great opportunity to develop some guys. For me, it's not going to be at the sake of having the right guy in to win a ball game. And that's just some of the adjustments that we're going to make it going into this weekend.
Can you see 3 out of 4 as a possibility for a guy? Or when they have 2 straight, do you want to give them a couple days?
It just depends. I think when you look at, it depends on the volume, first of all. It depends on the body. Like Ian was available and ready on Monday to throw. Thankfully, we opened up a lead and didn't really have to go back to him. There was a spot Monday where we might have used Randy for 2 hitters because he had a pretty low pitch count in terms of both days, and then had a day off. So it's really dependent on the volume, the situation, and the body. And then we'll take all those things into consideration. And then most importantly, what do we need to do for the game that's in front of us? And if that matches up with the rest and those things that I mentioned, then you might see that, but you might not.
And you mentioned Garrett. Do you expect to extend him a little bit more, a few more pitches?
We
Still look
certainly
at him as
liked it. Yeah, he came out of his outing good, fine, which was great. And I'd like to see him add to his volume this weekend. I think that will help put us in a much better spot in terms of what we do with the rest of the bullpen. You look at a guy like Quinn, who certainly started for us and can start for us, and we feel great when he does. In 2019, he came out of the bullpen in 2 really important wins for us and was really good too. So it just is going to allow us, more options as we kind of get these guys' pitch counts up, and then shrink down where we have to go, to what guys as it goes along. But I already feel better about, what happened, what we took from it, and where we go from here relative to the spots that we are going to put guys in from this point forward.
And you anticipate the same rotation in terms of going with Chase first and then so forth?
Yeah, same rotation this weekend as last weekend.
Thank you.
Are there any more questions for Coach Johnson? Yes, Brian Savick, final question.
Yeah, Coach. So, what did you really like that you saw out of Jacob Berry's bat in that final game against Ball State, where he ended up collecting his first 3 hits of his collegiate career? And what more would you like to see of him moving forward?
Yeah, I think he responded really well. I think I said this the other night. I think this is the biggest jump that a player makes is from high school baseball to high level Division I baseball. Then you add in, they missed their high school season. I mean, he had a very limited summer, probably only played about 7 or 8 games. So there's a steeper learning curve this year, regardless of the talent of any of these players. And naturally, and I'm sure it happened all over the country on Friday night, the game was moving pretty fast, for a few of our players, and Jacob included in that. I thought his at-bats Saturday were much better. I mean, I don't think he had any hits on Saturday. Got a bunt down, which allowed us to, score 2 and take the lead. Hit a line drive into the outfield, hit another ball hard, then got settled in. I wanted to get Tony in there because Tony Bullard on Sunday, because he's going to be an important part of our team moving forward. And so we didn't start him on Sunday more for that than anything else. And then Monday, I thought, just by watching, and we talked about this Sunday, like, just when you're sitting there, just make this as slow as you can in your mind while you're watching it, and then apply that when you go back in there. And I thought he did a really nice job of that on Monday. He's going to be a great player. I have no concerns about that whatsoever. And it'll be a big part of this year's team and moving forward. And, painful learning experience, I guess, for those first couple games, but I think it's going to serve him and our team well.
All right, thank you, Coach.
right,
We'll be
guys.
back in a minute with Vince Finelli. Yeah, questions for Vince Finelli, please raise your hand. First question, Michael Lev.
Hey there, Vince.
Hi, Michael.
How's it going?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, thank you. You had Austin Wells as a freshman catcher a couple of years ago, and now you have another freshman catcher in Daniel Susak. How would you compare their demeanors or the way that they kind of approach the job?
They're 2 totally different people, but I really take pride in like getting to know each one individually, because Wells was more of like a high wire, high intensity, like he was just really like, I don't know, high energy, and Dan's like really serious, and like you gotta like talk to him to get him to like loosen up sometimes, but at the same time, like they are both very elite at what they do, and over time you'll be able to tell like Dan's here, and he's gonna be very good for us.
What are you looking for out of a catcher in general? What do you want him to provide for you when you're out there on the mound?
Personally, I love like when catchers get like energized, and like if you make a big pitch in a big spot, I mean, like a fist bump or just kind of like talking your way through an inning, because that can go a long way, especially with younger guys who kind of, it's like their first time out there, and they sometimes need that little extra bit of energy from their catcher, and Dan provides that for us.
Sure. I should have asked Jay about this, but I noticed you guys are throwing the ball around the infield now after a strikeout, which you didn't do in the past. Did you guys tell Jay you wanted to do that? How did that change?
To be honest, I think that's an infield thing. I mean, us pitchers, we kind of just stick to our own practice down there. But I think I like after a strikeout, just doing that quick walk around the mound. I think that's awesome, because sometimes it can be a little awkward when you get the ball back and you're just standing there waiting for the hitter to get up there.
I know that Jay moving to the dugout is probably more of an impact on the hitters. But when he did that on Monday, what was it like? Was it weird? Was it different? Did it seem helpful?
Personally, I thought it was I liked it, because we have a couple freshmen in the lineup, and it kind of really helped them slow down, because you can tell on Friday, I think it was, a couple of the freshmen, I mean, it was their first time playing a game in over a year. And I mean, it's a big jump going from high school to high level D1 baseball, and especially when you're facing they're number 1. So I mean, their job is to make it as slow as possible right now, and Coach Johnson's really helping them do that.
Sure. And I also noticed that I'll call it the bullpen, where you guys are sitting there under the tents,
Yeah.
next to the dugout is loud. It was definitely louder the last two games of the series compared to the first two. Did you guys get together and sort of just decide, hey, we need to bring more energy to the table?
Yeah, absolutely. Because at the end of the day, it's just us out there. And I know like families this weekend are gonna come to the ballpark, but at the same time, this is our team and we provide the energy that we need. And we kind of just like feed off of each other because like that, like the positive attitude, it kind of is contagious. So when you are on the mound and you're battling and competing and you hear your teammates behind you, it's a really big lift.
Are there any more questions for Vince? Yeah, go ahead, Michael.
I'll jump back in. What would you say were the positives and negatives to come out of the weekend series against Ball State?
Definitely a big learning opportunity for us because it just goes to show that everybody's going to have arms this year. I mean, especially with the extended rosters, like they're going to have way more depth as far as like in the bullpen. Because usually like let's say like the Sunday game, like of a 3-game series, some teams are going to be at like their last leg of their bullpen, so you can kind of expose them on that. But that's not what you'll see out of these extended rosters because they're going to bring out as many dudes as they can find to try and beat you. I mean, you saw it on Saturday when they brought their Sunday starter out to close it out for them. I mean, there's literally no chances that they're taking so that they can try and get any win they can against us, really. But
You mentioned slowing the game down, which I assume is sort of a learned skill for young players. What about shaking off a bad play or a bad game? Is that something that you're just able to do, or is that something that you need to learn over time?
it's definitely learned because like coming in here, you like as a freshman, you can think like, yeah, I've got it all figured out. But I mean, as coming in here as a junior college guy, I thought I knew like pretty well like what pitching was, but I mean, coming to high level D1, it's a different realm. I mean, you got to learn a lot of things to compete against some of the best college players in the country. And for a lot of the younger guys, they're gonna have to learn to overcome adversity quick because the game just keeps moving on. I mean, you can't really fall back on mistakes because there's always that next pitch in front of you.
One last call for questions for Vince. All right, thank you, Vince. We'll be back in a minute with Daniel Susan. Okay, questions for Daniel Susak, please raise your hand. We'll start with Michael Lev.
Hey there, Daniel. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. What has your college experience been like so far?
It's been good. It's been pretty quick. I'd say the fall went by very fast. Kind of took some getting used to. A lot quicker game, a lot more is expected of you as it should be. And just a quick learning curve, had to grow up real quick.
Did the game feel quick or fast to you when you got out there on Friday? It seems like the theme with a lot of things Jay's been talking about and some of the younger players is this idea of needing to slow things down.
Yeah, I'd say leading up to the game, I wouldn't say I was nervous, but I was more like excited and kind of got the jitters. Then as soon as Chase threw the first pitch, it all went away. Kind of felt like summer ball a little bit last year. No fans, obviously. So kind of just took me back to that and kind of getting back into that reality that was last year.
Where did you play summer ball last year?
I played in my hometown for the Lincoln Potters.
Okay. The experience that your brothers had playing college baseball, did that kind of lead you to on this path? Did you always want to go to college as opposed to, going straight to the pros?
I've had a lot of advice on it, especially from both my brothers taking two totally different routes. My oldest brother, Andrew, obviously a little bit more high profile. He loved college, had to go through that experience, a little bit of growing up. I'd say I was a little bit more mature at the same age, a little bit more of an old soul. And then my brother, Matt, went through 2 JUCOs to get to Nevada to actually play for Coach Johnson. So he had to kind of earn it a little bit more. I shouldn't say earn it more, but go through a little bit longer route, a little bit more stress. So it kind of gave me two different perspectives to really evaluate through my whole life.
Sure. And Andrew played for Coach on the same team when Coach Yeski was at Oregon State, right?
Yes, that's
So
correct.
you've known Coach Yeski for a long time?
Yep.
How would you describe your relationship with him and what it means to be a part of the team that he's on now?
Yeah, it's great. I'll even have like umpires last week telling me the guy's a wizard. Stuff you just can't explain with him. Stuff he's thinking. I'll be as a hitter trying to outthink him, and it never works out. He just always knows what I'm thinking. And he's honestly probably taught me more about life and being a man versus baseball, and just kind of that growing up phase as a freshman.
Sure. And was his coming here, was that the first domino that fell that led to your decommitting from Oregon State and ending up at Arizona?
I think the first domino was Coach Casey retiring. Seeing that obviously hurt a little bit. And then Coach Yeski leaving as well was pretty tough as well. And then bringing in pretty new coaching staff, which I wasn't very familiar with. And then obviously my brother Matt played for Coach Johnson, Coach Lon, and Coach Wanaka at Nevada. And it was kind of like two worlds
colliding.
Yep.
Yeah. Your brother was a catcher. Was that always the position that you were going to play because of that? How did that kind of evolve?
I've always loved kind of being like in control. Obviously I played football as quarterback, and being a catcher kind of gives you more control of the game. I've played in summer ball almost every position: left field, shortstop, second base, center field. And I wouldn't say get bored, but it's so different than catcher, where you're getting the ball every single pitch. And then you go into left field, you'll get one a game, and you start to see how long baseball games can really be.
I remember Austin Wells would say pretty much the exact same thing. He wanted to play catcher because you're just more involved in the play. Well, are there any other similarities between catcher and quarterback?
There's a lot. I'd say coming up with stuff on the fly, kind of if things go bad, kind of turning that quick pitch really quick and finding a new route for success. I'd say that's the biggest one. But I'd say the biggest thing that catching helps me with is probably hitting, kind of knowing a pitcher inside and out, kind of knowing what they're thinking and where they're going to attack. I think that helps me the most.
Sure. I cover football too, and I've heard a lot of freshman quarterbacks come in and say that it's hard for them to be outspoken leaders right off the bat because they're new and they just don't feel comfortable doing that. But you have to do that to a certain degree as a catcher, right? Is that something that comes naturally for you? Is it something that's necessary in your job?
It's always come a little natural to me. I've always taken kind of a more serious feel towards it. I've always kind of not wanted to rub people the wrong way, but sometimes you kind of need to get under their skin, kind of light a fire under there. And I think the biggest part about it is getting to know everyone on a personal level and knowing what ticks them. Obviously, you have some pitchers where you can't criticize too much. They start to think about it too much. And then you have some that are opposite where you really got to get on them, and then it lights that fire.
How do you learn that over the course of fall practice and the practices leading up to the season, kind of what everyone's personalities are?
Yeah, it's more of an off the field thing, kind of getting to know them in the bullpen or off the field and just seeing them as people, not much as players.
Next question, Matt Moreno.
Coach mentioned that maybe this last weekend was one of your best behind the plate so far. I mean, what do you think went well for you out there in this first series to kind of get him to say that?
I think the biggest thing I tried to do was really talk throughout the whole game. I think one thing I did during the fall and spring that I could have gotten better at was talking a lot. And I don't feel like I was good enough at that over the fall and spring. And then I feel like first game kind of hit. And I just really had to bring that energy the whole game. And I even noticed it on, I think it was Sunday when the bullpen had the energy. You just see the whole team really more included in the game and really fired up to play. And it just brings an energy throughout the whole team and everybody gets pumped up.
When you prepare for a team that can score runs like this team you're going to be playing this weekend, what are some of the things you and the pitching staff are maybe focused on trying to get on the same page to kind of maybe limit some of those runs?
For the pitching staff and catching, I think the biggest thing for us is limiting the run game, trying to limit them to just making them earn the hits. No wild pitches, no pass balls, no stolen bags. We got to limit those as much as we can and make them earn the runs, not give them any free runs.
Next question, Brian Savick.
Yeah, so I noticed in the final game of the series against Ball State, you guys scored at least one run in all 8 innings batted in. What really clicked for you guys offensively in that game, and how do you expect to carry the momentum going to the series against Southeastern Louisiana?
I think the biggest thing in that game was we simplified our approach. I think in the first 3 games, we tried to get too big and try to win the game with every swing instead of breaking it down at bat by at bat and pitch by pitch. Coach Johnson said to us, we're not going to chase anything out of the zone. We're going to simplify it. We're going to play every at bat what we need to do and not try to win the game with one swing.
All right, final question. We'll go back to Michael Lev.
How much of your job do you feel like is, let's get the defense part taken care of, and then, you know, obviously you want to be a good all-around player, you want to be a good hitter, but is defense kind of the number one priority as a catcher for you at this point?
100%. Coach Yeski talks a lot about catchers being a servant. You're there to serve the pitcher and make them feel comfortable. And I think that's the biggest part of our job, making sure that we're getting the most out of the mound on that guy every day.
How far back do you go with TJ Nichols?
I've been playing with TJ since we were 8. We split obviously in high school, went to different high schools, but never lost the connection. Been with him my whole life.
And you guys were on a really good travel ball team. Is that right?
That is correct.
What do you remember about that team?
Gritty, very small. Teams would show up. They'd see us all kind of scrawny, all loose uniforms, and then we'd go put up 14 on them and show a shutout.
So did you and TJ are both what, about 6'4"?
Yeah.
Now, did you
About an
guys
inch
both have a
taller.
growth spurt at some point?
So I was always pretty tall. I was a pretty big 12-year-old. I was one of those kids where they kind of didn't believe it. But I always kind of grew gradually. But TJ was about, if I had to guess, 5'10", 5'11" until about sophomore year. And then he hit that growth spurt. Went from like 84 to 98 out of nowhere.
Sure. And you got a day off for the most part on Monday for his first start. Are you looking forward to when your things sync up and you can be his battery mate?
Yeah, I can't wait until I get to catch him again. Obviously got to catch him out in the fall, but just kind of catch him in a real game again is going to be really fun. Just taking us back to those days.
Is that something that you guys ever talked about when you were young? Like, we're going to team up in college or in MLB?
We all talked about it. Our whole team wanted to go to the same high school and same college. Obviously, you can't make that a reality to the most part, but that was always the goal.
Sure. You were a switch hitter for a time. When did you abandon that?
It started to fade a little bit towards the end of summer and towards here. I started to notice kind of got tough working on both at the same time. So I kind of had to, I still work on it a little bit, kind of getting both perspectives of righty and lefty, but it's mainly righty in games.
Would you say that it was mostly like a time management kind of deal?
I needed to focus. I usually hit more righty, so I needed to devote more time to that. Yep.
And also defense, I guess.
Yeah.
Takes up a big chunk of your time too.
Yep.
Okay. What kind of player is your cousin, Anthony, who's committed to come here next year?
That's tough to describe. I've played with him my whole life. It's different on the day. Some days he's a passionate pitcher, and other days he's a good kind of cocky where he knows he's gonna, shove. I think every day you're gonna get the most out of him though. Even if his stuff's on, he will compete. And probably one of the best off speeds I've ever caught.
And one last thing for you. What kind of advice have you gotten from your older brothers about just what to expect in college and how to just kind of handle your business?
Yeah. So the main thing I've got, I think that's why I come off as such a serious guy, is baseball is very humbling. I kind of got to notice that a little bit in the fall when Yeski knew how to pitch me basically. And it catches up to you real quick and you start to learn everybody's the same here. You got to work harder.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Thank you, everybody. That's all we have for this afternoon.